Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Small Charity IT Day in partnership with the FSI. This is the last of our IT webinars today. If you've been with us for our other webinar sessions that have been going on throughout the day, thank you very much for staying with us. It's probably been a bit of a long day, but hopefully some really good information coming out of it. And if this is your first today, then thanks very much for choosing this topic to join us. We're here to discuss working as a team in the virtual world and also, hopefully, fingers crossed, digital transformation with a colleague of ours, David Robertson. He's having some technical issues at the moment, but I'm hoping he's going to be on with us a bit later on. So let's get cracking. So first off, I want to say a big thank you to our other hosts today. So that's my colleagues Adam and Pav and Emily, and also some especially big thank yous to our guest speakers, Jonathan from Charity Digital and Carl from Sophos, for taking some time out of their day to provide some hopefully great advice and guidance for us during today's events. I'm going to change to the next slide. We've got the schedule on the screen, just in case you've missed it. Obviously, we're the last one of the day with the Working as a Team in the Virtual World session. If you've missed the tips and tools for charities or the cybersecurity, or Emily's making your mark online at 1:30, then there should be some live links coming out to those, or recordings of those, and the slides that we have up during those as well should be coming out to you in the next few days. So keep an eye out for those. And while we're here as well, if you can just jump into the Q&A, should be in the top right of your team session there, and then you'll be able to see a link to the prize draw, which is happening at 4 p.m. as well. So there's a good chance to win a brand new 50-inch TV. So just jump in there, pop your details in. You don't need to do it if you've done it on one of the previous sessions. I know we've got some people that are attending a few sessions today. If this is your first one, do jump in there and add that, and then make sure you join us on the link that you get through for the prize draw at 4 p.m. as well. So some of you may recognise the new name. It's Click IT for Charity. Some of you may know us as Premier Charity Solutions, and that was what we were this time last year when we did the last Small Charity IT Day. We've hopefully got a much friendlier sounding and much shorter saying name now with Click IT. But in short, we've been providing IT and web services to charities for many, many years now, and we specialise in helping charities achieve more for less with their IT. So my thinking around this is, when you're talking about perhaps television services, you might think of BT and Virgin and Sky, and there's really big players in that sort of industry. When it comes to IT, there really isn't anyone that stands out that's the name you can think of that could really help either charity or business. So what we're trying to do is become that trustworthy source for IT, web services. If you were an Emily's, you would have heard about the digital marketing and making your presence known. So all of those kind of services, we really want to be a helping hand. If we can't help, to help you find another provider out there. So Pav, for instance, mentioned earlier on his session about CRM solutions. It's not something we personally provide, but we've obviously got a lot of experience with the charities that we work with and the kind of solutions they use. So for that reason, hopefully we can be a signpost if we can't obviously help you ourselves. So that's a little bit more about us. There is, if you do want to book a free consultation after this, either about my session or any of the others, there will be a link to book it in, again, in the Q&A underneath where the link to the prize draw is. Please just go in there, fill in your details. If you want any of this information to be applied specifically to your charity, you can ask us any questions you like about any of the topics, and we'll just book in a quick session with you, run through any questions you've got, hopefully get you up and running. So I've mentioned it a couple of times, and you may or may not have done some of these sessions before. Hopefully you will have done, but the Q&A is open, should be open to be able to use. My colleague Jenny's already posted a couple of links in there with our prize draw and our consultations for booking as well. Please do ask any questions you want, either about this topic or anything. I'll try my best on anything, and I'll grab all those at the end. So I'll keep the webinar open at the end once the session's finished. Jump on any questions that we can answer. I'll publish any that I think are going to be useful for everybody. Obviously, I'll keep any private that might be specific to an organisation or may hold anything in there that shouldn't be shared. But mostly it should be, just some good content, and anything that we haven't covered or have covered that you just want some information on. If I can't help immediately, if it needs a bit more in depth, then obviously I'll mention to book a free consultation. But in all honesty, the best thing to do is just chuck it into the Q&A, and I'll let you know what we can do afterwards. So I'm going to introduce, hopefully, if he's online with us, our guest speaker, David Robertson. I'm not sure if he's made it onto the session yet. It doesn't look like it. So actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to skip over David. I'm going to start with my part first, and then hopefully come back to David by the end of the session if he's managed to join us. If he hasn't, what we might be able to do is to get him to pre-record that part of it. In fact, I think I might have just seen him join in the lobby, so bear with me. I'm going to see if we can get him on the screen right now. David, are you with us? There we go.
Hi.
Perfect. There we go. You're just in time. You've just made it for yours.
Fantastic.
Am I all right to send you live, David?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Stay there for me. There we go. The floor is yours.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. I just made it in time. I've had problems with Teams this morning, but anyway, made it. So apologies, I've not been able to catch up with the rest of the day. So forgive me if some of what I've said kind of covers some ground that's already been covered, and forgive me if I contradict anyone. I don't mean to, but we'll see how it goes. So, digital transformation and small charities. I've got a set of cards to remind me of what to say, and I think the first thing I'd like to point out is digital transformation. There's a great big secret behind it that nobody really ever talks about, and that is the fact that it's already happened. So the digital transformation that people talk about and want to get everybody engaged in has actually already happened, and it's happened because essentially it's how the technology of our world is run now. So everything is enabled pretty much by internet services. One way or another, it has some kind of link to an internet service. And that's all that digital is. It's moving away from hardwired connections to internet-based connections, meaning that you can use your laptop or anything anywhere, meaning that you can access applications that are somebody else's. And that's essentially what digital transformation is. So it's already happened. And the question is, for organizations, is how do we then engage with that? And where's our place in it? And also, tell me a bit more about digital transformation anyway. What does it actually mean? So considering that we're already in it, what is it that we're dealing with? And for me, the simple way to look at it is there's three kind of platforms, if you like. There's the how we work as an organization, so how the charity works. There's one platform. And then there's the data platform, so where is all of our data hosted and what can we do with that? And then there is the external channels, so our websites, mobile apps, wearable devices, you know, whatever it may be. So those are the three aspects, I think. And when people talk about digital transformation, they tend to want to do all three at the same time, and you can't. So I think it's a matter of deciding what's best for you, but essentially you're looking at changing the way that people work within the charity and the technology that they use. You're looking at offering services via a website and mobile applications. And you're looking at making your data more intelligent through AI. And that essentially is putting your data in the cloud somewhere, because that's where all that stuff happens. You don't even have to pay for that. It's just already there. So I think that's kind of like the three aspects of what it is in a nutshell. I think a lot of organizations get confused because they get stuck around the tasks then that you need to do to enable all of these things to happen. And there's a lot that needs doing, you know, no question about that. But also, it's more about the world's just changed, it's pivoted. And we have to go along with it. You can stay as an analog service if you like, but the world's changed. And so our organizations have to change with them. So it's not just replacing IT. It's not just updating the website. It's about, if you could redesign your charity or your service now, knowing what we know about the technology that's available, how would you do that if you had to start again? I think would be a good question to ask. I've done the platforms. So the website, I'll give you an example of a website. So traditionally websites were pages, really, just a set of pages that were loaded, and you might have some links on there to do some shopping or something like that. Now they're a service in and of themselves, because through your website you can give people access to video conferencing, all kinds of services where you can have live chats. They can connect you to services where you can ask questionnaires and give people feedback on how they're feeling or whatever it may be. It's essentially no longer a shop window into your organization, it's a service in and of itself. And that means that we have to look at how we communicate with people then through the website. And think more so in terms of the service that you deliver. So for example, a lot of websites will have something on there about how to improve your digital capability or get used to digital. They'll have a section on there for that. The majority of people looking at your website don't know what digital means. The last thing that they saw with digital was moving from analog TV to digital TV. They don't really know what the rest of it is. So as a service, when you have a section on your website that says digitally enabling or something like that, it actually doesn't mean anything to anyone. So if you renamed that service to what it actually is, something like how to help setting up your mobile phone or tablet, help setting up your router, help setting up how to get on the internet, whatever it may be. If you're more explicit about the service that you deliver, that's one of the changes from a design perspective, if you like, but also how your website is used and viewed. I'm just throwing bombs out there, but hopefully you'll kind of ask me a few questions later. So there's this technology change around how people work, about where data is stored and how we use it, and also the channels that we engage people in. But there's a tension, and there's a tension between the people that deliver these new services and the people that are asking for them. The people that deliver them generally work in what they call an agile way, and that's more democratic. The organizations that ask for them work in a hierarchy, and sometimes there's a tension in terms of how you get things done. And I think as an organization, you need to be aware that there will be that tension. And there's all kinds of stuff online. You can look at agile ways of working. But a lot of the people you'll be dealing with have that mindset, even if your organization doesn't, and it's something to be aware of. And the thing that really hampers, I think, charities is the funding model, if I'm honest. So currently a lot of work is funded through its projects, it's funding projects. But what we're really talking about is an evolution of how your charity works, operates, and delivers its services. And that's much more than one project that you can get funding for. And that, I think, requires some creative thinking, because it is a big job, and it spans your entire organization. And just funding for one particular project for a few months isn't necessarily going to cut it. Welcome though it is. So that's something to think about. And the other thing is, regardless of how far you get in engaging with digital, don't forget that you need some backup when the lights go out. So even though you may design your services around the new technology that we have available to us, your business continuity has to now have within it embedded the fact that all of that technology might shut off, and how do you then deliver your services? That becomes more paramount than ever. And I think that in a nutshell, it is a nutshell. That's kind of my experiences and gleanings and learnings from digital transformation. across the board, not just small charities, but huge enterprises as well. So I hope that's give you something to think about and maybe puts the cat among some pigeons. I don't know, but there you go.
David, can I ask you a quick question? I know we haven't started the Q&A yet, but I've got a question as well that is obviously we've worked with you. I'm going to bring myself on the screen so it doesn't look like you're just talking to a random stranger.
Yeah.
We've worked with you on other projects. You've worked for charities with us as the IT partner on those projects. And by the time I suppose we see you on those projects, you've already undertaken a huge amount of work. You've already sort of helped to understand and articulate the problems that the charity's having. So at what point does an organisation reach out to you and say we need help? Kind of what's the catalyst, and what's the first thing you would say, right, here's why you're going to need someone like me, I suppose?
The catalyst for it is usually you'll be trawling for funding, and there'll be funding for somebody to help you deliver digital transformation. That's generally how it works. But I think, it's because there's those three ways of looking at it. So you're going to get people from operations saying we need to change our IT. That could be the catalyst for it. You're going to get people in your data teams going, we need to upgrade stuff and understand our data more. And you're going to get people in marketing going, do you know what, we don't do what we should be doing, and we really need to engage many more channels and understand what the digital world is and how to deliver stuff. So any of those three things can be a catalyst for a conversation with someone like me.
And what's the best way to reach out to you, I suppose? So in terms of finding a digital transformation expert, and we've come across quite a few of the organisations that we work with. Is it LinkedIn? Is it speaking to other charities and find out how they get in touch with someone like yourself or yourself? How does that kind of conversation usually start?
I mean, I personally would use LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's really good for sussing people out, seeing what they've done, and just having informal conversations before you start anything formal, and seeing if this person is going to be the right fit for you. There's a lot of digital transformation experts. I don't claim to be an expert at all. I've worked in the sector for a bit, and I've seen it change. So I think LinkedIn is probably the best bet to reach out to me or anybody else, really, and start an informal conversation to see if you're both going to be a good fit to work together.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you very much. Are you okay to stick around for us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Cool. Thank you. I'm just going to pop myself back on the screen. I think there was a particularly poignant thing you said there which stuck with me when I'm trying to define this. And obviously, there's, like I said, there's a lot of charities that we meet, lots of different journeys with their IT. Something where you mentioned, actually, if you set up your charity today, how different would it look from an IT standpoint? What services or what solutions would you put in differently that you think are going to improve the offering you've got now? And I expect that's probably a great place to start. Again, we're talking budgets and funding and projects and what you can make in terms of allowances for that. But actually being able to say, do you know what, if we had, as you mentioned already, a more agile workforce, if we could reach out to staff or candidates for roles all the way across the country, that's going to really make a big difference to the service that we can offer, instead of just being a local organisation for our area. It's really going to allow us to reach out. And I'll touch on that a little bit later on, actually, with some of the technology that's out there at the moment. But I think it's a great point. Thank you very much. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to jump on to working as a team in the virtual world. So some of the services I am going to go through will be familiar to you already, but hopefully there's going to be some good advice in here, as David's already given us, and specific to your organisation. And I'm sure, in fact, I'll be certain, every organisation watching this at the moment will work slightly differently to the next. So some of this may ring true, but perhaps you may have organically taken on some of these solutions and maybe thinking about how we grow that or how we maximise what we've got already. For other organisations, it's maybe completely brand new. Hopefully it's brand new. So the first thing we should probably talk about is hybrid working. because that really is the future, or rather it's here with us already. And I think importantly, hybrid working or flexible working has been around for a very long time. There's always been people who are working in the office and out of the office, never too much of an issue with that. This is something that's clearly been forced, as David mentioned already, been pushed ahead in the industry, probably 3 to 5 years, really, and has really forced not only charities but businesses, everyone in the world, to think about how do we make sure we're offering our services, our solutions, allowing our staff to work properly and efficiently and effectively from anywhere, wherever they are. The stat that I've used on the screen here from the recent ONS survey is that 85% of employees and prospective candidates actually wanted some kind of hybrid working approach. So I think one of the biggest things we've got to think about, especially when it comes to IT, is we need to make sure that the charity sector is able to continue offering an attractive role, an attractive job offering to the best employees and volunteers that you're going to be using. Obviously, volunteers, slightly different, but we still want to attract the best that we can find for those. So your IT really needs to match what the rest of the world is able to offer as best it can. Clearly, there's going to be some instances where it's not, we're not talking competing with British Airways or anyone like that. I don't know, that's a good example, but especially we want to make sure that if you've, as I just mentioned today, if we've got people that want to be able to work from home, or even you want to hire staff outside of the area where your local charity works, being able to offer them the ability to open the laptop and join in on Teams or join in on Google Meet and all the other solutions that we're going to cover in this subject, I think is going to be massively important, and it's going to be hugely important going forward as well. So there's 3 keys, I think, to effective virtual teamwork. Teamwork is obviously a massive word. It doesn't just cover technology. There's trust, relationships, support, etc. There's lots of different things we need, but I'm going to focus on the 3 what I think really relate to IT, and that's communication, data storage and accessibility, and collaboration. And I want to run through some of the most popular solutions for those that are out there, and perhaps helps you understand the differences between them, and also why some may be better for your organisation than others. So we'll start with communication. Obviously, we're using the number 1 on the screen at the moment, which is Microsoft Teams. Zoom, I'm sure we've all managed to do some quizzes, or probably got bored of the quizzes doing those last year. So Zoom, again, is very frequently used, and particularly with charities, I think, kind of came around very organically. There's some others on there, Google Meet and Slack and WebEx and GoToMeeting. These are others that you may have used in the past, but certainly I think Teams and Zoom, and probably Google Meet, are the top 3 at the moment. They'll be the ones that, if you've used them, they're almost certainly going to be what you're using. So what I would stress, though, is I think it's important we shouldn't just be considering which is the best video conferencing or which is the best chat solution. I think we need to make sure that whatever solution you choose, it can really integrate with the rest of your IT suite or IT stack. So, for example, a couple of examples in there again, which we're going to touch on a bit later on. Microsoft Teams and Google Meet are part of a larger suite of services. Zoom is just video conferencing, just chat, doesn't really offer any other integration. So it is very much excellent at what it does, but it's a very much standalone application. The others, certainly Teams and Google, are able to offer a lot more in terms of better communication, better collaboration, and if you've used either of those services already, you may know this. If you haven't, then hopefully some of this is going to be useful to you. But really, we want to think about, start off with, how are our staff going to communicate, and what else are they going to need to do while they're doing this? So, for example, right now I'm doing a webinar. It might be that you're all working together on a funding application, and you want to be able to present, but you want to all be able to edit the document at the same time, etc., etc. And obviously, we'll come under the collaboration side a bit later on. So I'm going to stick with Microsoft Teams very quickly, because something that's fairly recently, I think it was sort of March, April time this year, but isn't really being used hugely at the moment, is something called their home app. A home site app, sorry, is what I should say. So some of you may already have an intranet system, or may have used an intranet system in the past. Microsoft is really trying to push using Teams as a collaborative experience, not just for video conferencing and for the chat tool either. So what you'll be able to see, hopefully this is going to be big enough for you to be able to see, but we can always send around the links to this as well, is an intranet system built in SharePoint Online, so part of the Microsoft 365 suite of services, as Teams is. But so it acts like an intranet. So it's for your internal employees, but it's most importantly, previously you'd have had to log into a web browser to access this. Microsoft has now built this home site app directly into Teams. So the example you've got on your screen here will mention things like local weather and the latest announcements for the organisation, and it might be events coming up. This really can be customised to whatever you want it to be. But as I say, most importantly, it's you're accessing it through one place. Instead of needing Teams for video conferencing, I need to open up a web browser to get to my intranet system, might need to do something else to be making telephone calls. Teams allows you to do all of that now, as do some of the other services, but I wanted to really kind of highlight how this is particularly important, and that's without touching on being able to access your files through Teams, access your Outlook calendar. They're really trying to make it the #1 tool that you can use. With external calling and things like that as well. So it's well worth looking at. If you're already using Teams, consider putting something like this in place. Obviously, the #1 thing with a home site app, we want to make sure the content's up to date. You really need to be keeping that up to date, especially. But I think it's important to just look at the trends that are coming out, and clearly having the home site app, which has just come out, and obviously this is 18 months or so into COVID, shows that Microsoft are really doubling down on this. So I really would recommend that as a particularly good solution. I'm going to divert away from communication now because we're using it now. We all know what we're doing with that, and I think there's probably some obvious advantages and solutions to that. What I want to jump into is data storage. So this is something that we've probably been the biggest challenge for the charities that we work with so far, and there's lots of different ways of doing this. You'll have physical servers or data stored on local machines. You might have a hosted desktop solution. So a lot of charities that we work with actually host their data in the cloud and log into virtual desktops through another provider. And then the others, the top 4 on our screen here, Microsoft 365, Dropbox, Google Workspace and Box, are probably the industry standard. And again, I would imagine Microsoft and Google probably pip the others to be the top of the list. We're in a similar position with this as we were on the communication side, really, because it isn't just about how do I store my data in the cloud, it's how do my colleagues interact with that data and that information, and it's how it fits into the bigger picture with the rest of your technology stack. So there's 3 questions we need to ask ourselves when we're talking about data storage. The first I would say is, which devices are users going to be accessing the system from? And again, with the last 18 months, this is absolutely prevalent. We've got some people that, especially when lockdown happened, the dreaded day in 23rd, 24th of March, it was, can I pick up a device and take it home? Do I need to use my personal device? Have I got to now start using my tablet at home? So it depends whether users will be using company provided devices, or some users may also want to be able to use their personal devices. We need to make sure we're not giving staff access to download and store organizational data on their own devices. So that's hugely important. So really, we're talking, when we're saying devices, we're actually talking about data management and data security. But importantly, it's how are they accessing your data? So again, using Microsoft as an example, if they're a personal user using a personal device and they need to access Word documents and PowerPoint and Excel, they can use a web browser version of Microsoft 365, which has got Word and Excel and PowerPoint, etc., built into the web browser. And it means that none of that data actually needs to be stored on their local machine, but they can still access it from anywhere else. And obviously that doubles on to anyone that needs to be able to access that data, even if they've got a company device, as I quite often do, or maybe not so much anymore, but used to. I was sat on a train on the way up to a meeting, I'd be able to open up my phone and quickly edit a document that I'm about to present without needing to be sat in front of my PC in the office. So that's #1 would be which devices are in use by their users. Defining user roles. So if we're moving to a cloud-based structure, or in fact, if we're moving to any kind of data storage, we want to make sure that user roles are specific to the staff member that we're talking about, or volunteer that we're talking about, or trustee that we could be talking about. So we really want to make sure that you're giving the users the permission they need to access the areas they need and nothing more. So when you're undertaking this migration, a good place that we usually start, we look at the data structures, obviously is the next one I'm going to look at, but we look at user roles. So the first thing we say is we set up security groups for your users and say, this bunch of users need this level of access. It might be finance, it might be HR, it might be fundraising, and we define them by user roles, and that's how we set out their permissions, and it usually works out to be a really good way of doing it. The final one, and I know it's very boring, but we do need to touch on it, is data structure. I think I'm going to hold our hands up because I think we're probably the same as everybody else here, but it's important to really think about what data you want to move with you, into 365, but also more importantly, how is it going to be laid out? Is it going to be functional not only now, but is it going to be functional in 5 years' time? Because don't forget, we're not talking about a physical server here. We're not talking about something that's going to need to be replaced in maybe 3 to 5 years. The idea here would be a cloud migration is going to last you forever as far as those cloud services are going to run for. So we really want to make sure that the thought you're thinking about is not just, you know, we might have 10 users and 5 volunteers now, for example, but we need to make sure that we're planning ahead to say that if those users grow, or the number of roles that we offer grow, again coming back to the user roles and security groups, that we're able to put that structure, to amend that structure in future in a way that it can grow with the organization. We don't want to be fixed to, well, we've copied it all into one folder in SharePoint and there's nothing else we can really do with it. We're stuck now. We can't change any of the permissions. We can't add this new person that's joined and only needs access to these 5 folders. So, and again, hopefully someone like Click or an IT consultant will be able to help you with this. But I think it's important really to think about which device is being used, the user roles, and the data structure you're going to have as well. So I'm going to move on to collaboration for virtual teams. So obviously Microsoft Teams is a great way to collaborate, but I'm going to, if it's okay, I'm going to stick with Microsoft 365 because, to be honest, I think it's the best on the market at the moment for offering this, particularly because it not only shows what can be done with, not only shows the features can be done with local Microsoft Office applications as well as through Office Online. So I mentioned being able to edit documents on the fly. These collaboration tools that we're talking about here can all be done from any device, whether it's my laptop in the office or my smartphone or my tablet when I'm on the train. So the first one I'm going to start with, the first feature I really want to quickly touch on, is real-time document collaboration, and we use this all the time. I used it to put this document together that you're looking at right now with my colleague Jenny. We work in real time on documents. So when I am working on a document and Jenny jumps into the PowerPoint presentation and shares it with me, you can see, and hopefully you'll be able to see on this GIF. If it's a bit small, you'll get a copy of this afterwards to be able to see it properly. And I'm more than happy to do demos and stuff like that for this. You'll be able to see where the document's being edited. And obviously the example that we've got here is Microsoft Word, but it works across Excel and PowerPoint and the whole Office suite. There's an especially good thing with Excel, actually. It's been a feature for a while, but a lot of people don't know about it, called Sheet View. And this means that if you're collaborating on a document, and let's say, for example, I need to filter the document by everybody called Smith, but you need to see everyone in the document, instead of me filtering it and changing your view, which is normally what would happen within Excel, Sheet View allows me to customize my own view just for my user, but still edit the data in real time. So if I'm editing, I don't know, row 37, and it's a Smith entry, the changes I make will still be updating on your side as well. So it's really, really good to be able to use. And again, if you've got colleagues all over the country, or if you've got colleagues using different devices, this is a fantastic solution to be able to really work on the same reports at the same time. The next one I want to mention, and again, we get quite a lot of use out of this here ourselves, and I think particularly on our sort of finance and account side, is app mentions within SharePoint Online, within Microsoft 365. So if we're working on a document, and again, the example we've got here is a PowerPoint presentation. It really could be any kind of document that we need to use. Excel, sorry, it's an Excel, not PowerPoint. You can app mention a colleague within the document. So, for example, if you've got a document you're working, it might be a fundraising application, let's say a funding application, and I've made a change to the document. I want a colleague to quickly review that to make sure they're happy with what I've changed. I can app mention, I'm going to use Jenny as an example again, app mention Jenny. Jenny can get an email through, sent to her Outlook. She can jump through the email, view the document, see the changes I've made, comment on the changes I've made, even approve them. We've got the next slide talks about track document changes. But importantly, it's about really honing in on that collaboration. And I think now more than ever, I mean, none of us live particularly far from the office, but in the last year, we've used this more than probably any other feature because it really does help you to have easy conversations with colleagues about the specific content, collaborate on documents together, not just in real time, but it might be I'm working in the middle of the night on something and I need to tell Jenny, actually, I've updated this before our meeting tomorrow. Could you quickly have a look and make sure that it works for you? So app mentions is absolutely invaluable. If you're using Microsoft 365 and SharePoint and you're not using these at the moment, just go and have a play with them because I promise you they're really fantastic. They're really, really good. The last one I want to mention here, second to last, in fact, is track document changes. So this one's very, very easy. If I've made a change to a document and Jenny's not in it. Next time Jenny comes back into the document, she'll be able to see the areas that I've changed, and it highlights that for me. The document also, you can kind of see in the top left of this animation, has an autosave. So while I'm working on the document, anytime I edit, type, drag, change the document at all, it's going to automatically save it for us as well. So that one's quite nice and easy. Track document changes. The final one I've got here, this is the final one now, is collaboration. Again, it's view and restore previous versions. So this is an absolute godsend, and I used it earlier on today with this presentation because I had saved over the top of it by mistake. Within the document, any user, you don't need admin rights, can click on the file name at the top, as you can see on the animation there, click on version history, and it's going to bring up any time that document has been edited. And it actually keeps 500 revisions. So it might be going back 2 or 3 years worth of revisions to that document. I can click on that document, click on the version that I'm looking for. So for example, the one that I did today, I saved over the top of it, went back to 9 AM this morning, open it up. You can compare within the document, compare the two versions that you've got, and either restore individual changes, just copy those over, or actually restore the whole document back over what you've got. So instead of in the past, if let's say for example you create a document at 9 o'clock in the morning and by 10 o'clock you think, oh, I need to go back to it, you've accidentally deleted it. If you're running a physical server and you haven't done a backup of your server yet, you're pretty much going to be stuck because it's unlikely you're going to be able to retrieve that document. With 365, and again, this is going to be the same across Google Meet and lots of the other solutions, but I'm sticking with 365 for now. It's going to auto save what you've done. You can previously restore to previous versions of the document that you've got. It saved very, very, very many accidents that we've had. We use a lot of template documents that get saved over the top of, and people add bits on or forget to change something. So having version history has been just an absolute lifesaver for us. So that's a bit of a whirlwind, and hopefully useful and informative. I do want to quickly sum up some of the stuff that we've covered. So consider whether your charity is equipped to offer the kind of hybrid working setup that current staff and future candidates are really expecting nowadays. This isn't just a nice thing to have, it really is an expectation. We're finding it as well with obviously the staff on our side and the hiring that we want to do. There is a massive expectation for hybrid working. So yeah, we want to make sure we're attracting the best talent to the sector. We want the best minds working with charities. So just trying to make sure that your IT is as good as it needs to be, not as good as it can be, because clearly you can spend millions of pounds doing this, as some organisations want to, but it's important to make sure. And look, this might be a situation where you go, well, we're not sure. We need to reach out to Click, or we need to reach out to David and ask for his assistance and advice and guidance. That's exactly what we're here for. This is that sort of question of, are we set up the right way? Is there more we should be doing? Is exactly what both of us are here for. The second one would be, how does your comms software integrate with other services? Again, we want to talk about your whole IT stack, not just stick to one subject, or not just stick to, well, that's great, we're using Zoom. Zoom's brilliant for doing video conferences. Well, actually, can you both share a document on Zoom and edit it at the same time, and et cetera, and how do those really fit in? And obviously the home site app, if that's really useful to you as well within Teams. Data storage. So again, 3 things we've got to think of there, which is, what devices do staff have access to? What permissions do your users need? And when we're talking users, as I mentioned, we're not just talking full-time staff, we're talking volunteers. It could be external, it could be trustees. All of these are possible within a lot of the solutions that we've talked about today, but just define those user roles. And how do we best lay out the files and folders? And in terms of security groups that we've talked about already, when we're moving to a cloud-based environment, or indeed even a physical environment, if we're moving to a NAS or a physical server, something like that. And then the final one would be, do your staff need to collaborate on documents at the same time? And does the platform you currently use, or the one you're looking to move to, offer the functionality you need to do this? Now, it's important to say, because it's a feature doesn't necessarily mean you're going to use it. So do ask that question and present the options. If you need to get a team of champions within the organization that are going to help you make this decision, because it's important to be able to say that that having the features great, we really need to show staff how to use it. So whoever's rolling this out for you, so Click here, for example, if we're rolling this out for an organization, the first thing we do is get in front of your staff and your volunteers, anybody that you want to, do some demos. We will show you how we're using SharePoint, for example, as we do at the moment, and how that's going to work for your organization. Just get out there in front of them, make sure they're happy with how that's going to work. Collaboration's an absolutely massive part of this, really. What I will say as well, we're going to stick around and hopefully I'm just going to bring up to see if David is still with us. Yes, he is indeed. We're going to stick around on the Q&A. Just see if we've got some questions. I can see a few in there as well. Probably for the next 10 minutes or so. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the video off. I'm going to leave the slide up for us to answer your questions. So if there's anything we don't cover or haven't covered or you think would be really good to know, by all means ask it in the Q&A. If it's a long thing or I think it's going to be very specific to you as an organisation, as I mentioned earlier on, then we'll just make sure that we jump on, set up a session with you. We'll do a free IT consultation with you so you've got everything that you need to see. David, I want to say a massive thank you for joining us today. Hopefully, sorry I threw you in it on the deep end at the very last minute, but hopefully that was okay. Are you all right to stick around for the Q&A for us? I think there might be some questions coming in that probably both of us could answer. So are you all right to stick around and we'll run through those together?
Yeah,
brilliant.
No problem.
He's giving me a thumbs up. We're all good. Okay, excellent. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Don't forget to book to jump onto the free prize draw happening in about 15 minutes. And if you need any help in the consultations, just jot the details in the other link on there as well. And then, yeah, hopefully we'll see you at 4 o'clock.